Historically, reality dating shows have focused on heterosexuals, but over the years, a few brave shows have handled reality television dating shows for queer, lesbian, and bisexual women and/or trans people of all genders. From chaotic bisexual dating shows in the 2000s to ensemble reality competitions where an LGBTQ plus cast member tried to find love, there have been several successful attempts. The matter of fact is LGBTQ plus people deserve representation in every industry, and this responsibility has to be taken by the people of our community. Fortunately, we see a few LGBTQ plus community members trying to represent the community through whatever work they do. One such name is queer filmmaker Nicole Kahn, and her recent show, Coming Out for Love, is the first lesbian dating competition show in the United States. Today's guest is the host of the show, Jessica Clark. Welcome to Unapologetically Queer. I'm your host, Al Ferguson, and I am proud to talk to some of the most interesting people of our LGBTQ plus community that are the most interesting to the LGBTQ plus community. This program is unique because it is an unedited conversation. At Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, our mission is based on the 10 pillars of the LGBTQ plus community. We believe our history and future are based on the communities of Black LGBTQ plus, Latino, lesbian and queer women, trans, students and youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS healthcare, business, social justice, and faith. Out actor and activist Jessica Clark has worked in many popular movies and series. She has depicted a diverse slate of characters in her film and television career, including La La Land, Bravo's Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, the indie film A Perfect Ending, Rob Lowe's wife in the satirical thriller Pocket Listing, and in the first queer woman-led Christmas movie, Season of Love. Jessica also starred in HBO's Emmy-nominated series True Blood as Lilith. I loved that character, the mother of all vampires. She has graced the covers of magazines including Vogue and has modeled for Maxim, Elle, Allure, Cosmo, GQ, Playboy, and many more. She is happily married to artist Ruby Croak, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So, welcome, Jessica Clark, and I understand you are unapologetically queer. Is that correct? You're unapologetically queer.
I am unapologetically queer. In fact, I love it. I'm so grateful to be part of our community, and thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. I love the work that you do.
Thank you very much. And first off, you hold me at a tremendous disadvantage because I'm an Anglophile, and anyone that speaks in the accent that you speak, I am totally surrendering to you instantaneously. Let's start.
Wonderful.
Let's start right off the top. People know you, of course, as openly gay actress, queer actress, but very few know in the U.S. Who you were before becoming famous. Tell us about your life growing up in London and before the fame that you've received. What was it like growing up in England as what ultimately becomes a lesbian queer woman?
It was overall, I think, a very rich experience. I think that's one of the things I can say about London is that it has so much diversity in so many ways. I will confess that for much of my childhood, I felt sort of disconnected, or as though I was floating between the different communities because I'm multi-ethnic. I have grandparents. Each of my grandparents is from another country, which I'm proud of and I love. I have Indian, Nigerian, English, and Irish. So I very much identified with that sort of mixed heritage. But growing up, I did feel a little isolated and like I didn't belong anywhere. So whereas a lot of people might think that realizing that you're a lesbian, a queer, or however whatever term you identify with, I call myself a queer lesbian because I kind of fall in between the generations. But it was realizing my queerness, it actually gave me the community that I have been longing for the whole time. And so for me, it truly has been such a gift in so many ways. And thank you for speaking so highly of my career. I genuinely am just so grateful that I get to be myself and that I get to work and pay my bills by
Yeah.
participating in our representation.
You know, many of our viewers in this anthology talk chat show, as you call them in London, we are constantly interested in the coming out experience of
Mm-hmm.
celebrity before celebrity. What was your coming out experience like in Britain?
It was honestly like somewhat of a non-event. I think that I was always sort of a quirky person, even growing up, and very much into social justice. Even when I was a little girl, I wanted originally to be a barrister and work in human rights and things like that. So, uh, people were very used to me being outspoken and very um, uplifting and protected of what would be considered sort of subcultures. So when I realized that I was gay, everyone was kind of like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Except for my mother, who wasn't the slightest, but she kind of thought it might be a phase. And then obviously straight men definitely tried to convince me quite a lot
Yeah.
that I was in fact. But yeah, it was a fairly non-event in terms of growing up in London. When it did become more of a factor was when I was living in New York and I was working as a fashion model and doing the runway and all that kind of thing. And I was out in terms of my coworkers and my agents and things like that, but it wasn't something discussed with clients or anything until I had did the music video Burn for Usher, which at the time was this, well, it is a beautifully produced
I
music
know
video,
it.
very much in the
Yes,
filmic sense. Oh, you do? Oh,
I
you do.
do. Yeah.
So it was a huge hit at the time. It's still one of the things that my brothers think is the coolest that I've accomplished. Um, it was a huge hit at the time, and so everyone was kind of talking about it and stuff. And this will date me. It was the tail end of MySpace, and somebody from
Child.
that knew me from MySpace wrote on the After Ellen website, which at the time was like the
The thing.
aggregate of
Yeah.
it. It was the thing,
The
exactly,
thing. Yeah.
And so they wrote on After Ellen, I know that girl from MySpace, she's lesbian. And so then it sort of became a lot more public because, Usher said a couple of things about, you know, the reason women being gay were because men were behaving inadequately and things like that. So it sort of
Yeah.
picked up momentum and attention that way. But I was very, very fortunate in the sense that my agents were very, very supportive of me. And even some corporate clients that I was surprised by sort of continue to work with me and things like that. So
Yeah.
whereas I'm sure it affected my career in some ways, I also feel very grateful that there were people, the trailblazers that have come before me, right? Jenny Shmizu and like several other, Gia, people like that. So I was just very grateful that they had done sort of the really hard legwork.
You know, the other thing that I constantly get asked when I we do interviews with people like you is they're interested in your coming out story, but they're also interested in your love life. And you were married, Ruby Croak. Your wife was born, and of course, we love it because we're here in South Florida. She was born in Miami, raised in Brooklyn, and I actually, and I asked you in pre-interview, and now I know because I did see it. I went to Girls in Wonderland this year, and she is a well-known tattoo artist and owns and runs High Art Tattoo in Los Angeles. Tell me about that. First off, your get to know love story, your coming out for love, as it's so to speak, with your wife. Tell us about that.
Okay, so we actually met at a girl party, which at the time was one of like the coolest, hottest girl parties in New York. It was called Eden, and it was under Coffee Shop in Union Square. So it was really a fun party. New York was really fun at that time for men. And this is when we met. This is not where we get together. I came because I was a model at the time. I brought my little suitcase and apparently, and went to this party, and she, I guess, spotted me and sort of like watched me walk down the stairs, etc., and then watched me go to the woman that I was dating at the time, kind of being like, dang it, you know. And so we were introduced, and there was an energy, but I was very much in love with my girlfriend at the time, and we stayed together for a long time. But that was kind of our introduction. And while we remain completely appropriate, she's this very smiley, like welcoming person. She's covered with tattoos, and she's actually one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. And so she was just somebody that if I saw around all the different events and the different things that I would host and whatever, and she did a lot of stuff in nightlife, it was just a nice person to see. And then years later, I had moved to Los Angeles, and unbeknownst to me, she had also moved to Los Angeles. I was going through a bad breakup at the time and staying on the couch of one of my best straight friends, and like dragged me up, and she was like, we're going to a bar. And I was like, a straight bar? What are you trying to do to me? You know, I'm not in the mood for any of that. Nonetheless, dragged me out, and we're sat at the bar, and in Ruby walks, and I don't know, just came right up to me and asked me how I was, and I started crying.
Seriously, on the first
so
meeting
romantic.
of that
yeah,
moment.
well, it wasn't the first meeting, but it was essentially. But it was like this energy, and I just thought, oh, well, I'm honest. Like you're never really honest in that kind of social situation. So it's sort of had all the like normal, socially acceptable things to say. And I looked at her, I was like, I'm just going to be honest. Started to be honest and started crying instead.
Yeah,
so
that's a lovely story.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about all of the stereotypes, you know, waspy, older, white, gay guy, lesbian tattoo artist. Any stereotypes about a lesbian tattoo artist, talented artist? Any of whatever stereotype might be in my head, any of that true, or no, Al, none of that's true? Here's really what this trade is really like.
I mean, I would guess some of the assumptions are true. You know, it's still a subculture, and it's kind of pirates, you know, because they're living outside of the mainstream, right? And certainly for Ruby's been tattooing for over 17 years. And she started in New York, in Brooklyn, where it was still like kind of a counterculture thing. It fully legalized in a lot of places for a long time. So, you know, they're definitely from very unusual places a lot of the time. And, you know, I wouldn't actively try and piss off a whole room of tattoo artists, but by the same token, most of them, honestly, like if you think about it, they draw flowers, roses, animals, people's portraits, you know, like if you really look at some of those scary tattoos, some of those guys that are covered and you're like, oh my God, if you look closely, it's his kids' names, it's
Kittens,
flowers,
puppies.
Listen,
Right.
The amount of pet portraits we do,
right.
You'd be surprised.
Right. I'm going to go to Wilton Drive tonight. We have many tattoo parlors, studios, and I'm going to go and talk to my friends and say, oh, really? You're just doing puppies and kittens, really, at the end of the day. One of the things I want to ask about is you had a display, you and Ruby, we were in Orlando together. I was at Gay Days, and broadly I use the term Gay Days. Gay Days, as everyone knows, or nationally, if you don't know, you've got to come to Orlando the first week in June. It's Disney Bears Jamboree is one of the big events. OMW is one of the big events. Of course, the original Gay Days, and the mother of all women's events, arguably in the entire world, but certainly in Florida and Orlando, and that's Girls in Wonderland. And you were there. I worked with you behind the scenes in the special Girls in Wonderland special that we did at Queerness Tonight, and you were there with your wife. Tell me about your experience of coming to Orlando. We're definitely post-pandemic now, and seeing what Alison Burgos did at Girls in Wonderland. What was your reaction to what you saw this year?
First of all, I'm a huge fan of Alison's and just have so much respect for everything that she and her wife and her team do and for their level of activism in the community. I've known them for a long time. Actually, I started doing appearances for Girls in Wonderland and for Aqua Girl back in the day when I first started my career. And we've kind of all been together working together on and off throughout then, so I love them. But this year in particular, I wasn't surprised, but I was so grateful to them. Somewhat of a manufactured, if I may say, but a culture war. And so there's a lot of, high energy and high stakes on both sides. And so I was grateful that they were brave enough and continue to be out enough to provide us an environment to celebrate each other and just queer joy, right? For me, like there's resistance in joy, like there's rebellion in joy. So I love that they provide that. And then also there was a call to action on Sunday. Everybody came out on stage and just really reminding everybody that it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to be here in our bikinis and just loving life and going up the adventure course and all of that. Like, it's a privilege that has been fought for so hard and there's so many lives, and that it's our responsibility to continue that work, so that the next generations get to twirl around in bikinis as well. Your rights are also your responsibilities.
I love your message that activism can come in a fun way, and it still is activism for community. I was staying just down the street. I was staying at the Gay Days Hotel, but my broadcast partner at It's Happening Out is Faye Watt, and she hosted Washington's comedy show, and she hosted the Saturday afternoon pool party. And I went to both events. And when I came to the pool party, I went to OMW, I went to Disney Bears, I went to I went to Riptide, I went to the Red Party at Disney Springs. I went to that Saturday afternoon pool party. And I have to tell you, Jessica, jaded, older, privileged, white, gay guy, went, holy crap, these girls are off the chain. It was, in my opinion, now this is just between you and me, please don't tell anybody at all, that afternoon, Saturday afternoon pool party was the top party of all of Gay Days week. And it was shocking to me because, wait, this is the girls, we're the guys in LGBTQ. But the girls just, my goodness. That doesn't surprise you that the girls just absolutely brought it at Girls in Wonderland?
It doesn't surprise me because the women and girls that come to Girls, they're always virgins, right? There are always people that it's their first time, and they often come with more seasoned people, so they're very excited. But then there are people that met there 10 years ago or 12 ago, and they come every year for their anniversary. People come from all over the world, from all over the country, from all over Florida, and we're ready. There are very few places. There are virtually no lesbian or queer women bars anywhere in the United States anymore. We occasionally get a night at a gay place that's primarily for the cis men. And even then we have the gay men in with us, which is fine, but it's still not the ultimate freedom. It's still not without misogyny and all of that stuff. So we know that this is one of our very few opportunities just to be whoever we want to be, kiss whoever we want to kiss, and that is just a tradition every year. I just love it.
I love that. I just absolutely love that. And if I didn't know any better, I would say that is so gay man. But really, it's the same for lesbians. I love that. I can't get away in talking to you without talking about arguably one of my favorite shows of my entire life. And of course, that was True Blood. My 50th birthday party, the producers of True Blood sent cases and cases of True Blood to my 50th birthday party with a message at my 50th birthday party from cast members of True Blood, and stuff that I had done for RuPaul's Drag Race, etc. I had some connections there, and it's an amazing series. As everyone knows, if you haven't watched True Blood, go back and watch it. Season 1, episode 1, and watch all the way through. True Blood was gay, lesbian, pan, trans, LGBTQ plus, evolving, whatever definition you want to apply, long before so much of today's television shows explored in Netflix, etc., and other streaming platforms. You, of course, were Lilith, the mother of all vampires. Now, in that season where that storyline developed, tell me about that experience in True Blood. Now I'm fanning out. I'm just fanning out.
Well, first of all, let me say that you just became the coolest person I know, because who gets crates of True Blood at their party? But yes, I agree with everything you said. I was actually a huge fan of True Blood before I was cast, very, very much so, for all the reasons that you say, and just, you know, the allegory of like the different supernatural people representing different marginalized communities and the prejudices that we go up against. And obviously Alan Ball is a genius, Angela Robinson, there was just like legitimate LGBTQ content, but also in appealed to just everybody and had these amazing messages that you just sort of absorbed subliminally because the stories were so good and the characters were so fabulous. So I was a huge fan. I continue to be a huge fan. My first day on set was funny because, you know, everyone's like great and they're coming up and introducing themselves, and I'm like, I know who you are. I know who you are. Like inside, I obviously wasn't doing that when I'm like, I played it very cool.
Yeah,
but yeah,
cool.
Inside I was geeking out all day, and I had to go all around the sound stages and see all the differences and all of that fabulous stuff. But yeah, I was my very first scene is at the engagement party. And so Lilith kind of appears from this pool of blood up on the stage. And of course, all of that was CGI afterwards. So it really was just me kind of crouched down into a ball, pretending covered in. And then the moment I just had hand up in all my glory, and literally in all my glory, because that scene was nude, and that was it was a surreal experience, but everyone was just so incredible. And also when the scene was done, and like a lot of the cast came up and were very much like, now you're a part of True Blood. Like once you've done your first nude scene, like you are in, like you're part of the team. So I just thought that was a really fun, sweet way to approach somebody who was, you know, having to be brave in that moment.
You know, Jessica, yeah. I have to say, I love my job because I get to talk to somebody who says, yeah, I appeared out of this big pool of blood. And, you know, it's a cool job. I'm curious, in your experience of playing Lilith in True Blood, did you have a particular interaction? Anyone on the set that you just had a special twinkle to that said, gosh, that person's super special to me? Anybody like that?
I mean, there were just so many incredibly talented people. I would say Nalsan, may he rest in peace, was just a force to be reckoned with. And then Rutina as well, Rutina Wesley. I just, we're still friends. I just absolutely love her. But honestly, everyone was fantastic. Steven, I had a lot of my scenes even. So I really just tried to absorb, honestly, as much as I could, because there were some incredible actors on that set. And I was very much in that zone. I just was grateful to be there, trying the best job I possibly could, and just got very, very lucky with my experience, I think. Yeah, being on an HBO show, great. I gotta tell you,
it's not so
really
bad
good.
either. Yes, exactly. Before we talk about your new reality show that you're host, I do want to take a moment to talk about, you've mentioned it already, runway and being a fashion model. A lot of people may not understand or be clear. I want to repeat what Jessica said. She's a British model. That was the formation of career, an actress, of course, Irish, Indian, and Nigerian descent. And we're going to show you a beautiful cover of Vogue magazine, Vogue India. that Jessica was on, and you've appeared in many, many magazines and Runway. Tell us about, there's the Vogue cover, Vogue India. Tell us about your roots, family from India, and your passion for fashion and being a fashion model. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah. So the she wasn't with us for a very long time. Just when I was a little girl. So that's hard for me. But she ingrained just a love of community, a love of how just food and music and just being together and the cooking together and things like that. I would say they're my memories and what she gave me. But in terms of growing up, I was very lucky in that there is a large Pakistani community in London, and so while my day-to-day family was very much kind of all mixed up, like our next door neighbors were from India, like half of my schoolmates were from India, and so I was able still to feel a connection. However, it is one of my regrets that I'm not more integrated into that community. And in fact, there are several friends of mine in Los Angeles who feel similarly, who are also sort of mixed heritage from the diaspora and feel both this longing and this separation from it. So we've kind of found some healing with that together. So with factoring all of that in, the fact that Vogue is interested in me, I was surprised, honestly, because I guess I felt not Indian enough, and I was kind of like, really? Like, they want me? So it was a surprising and very special experience. And I just am very grateful that I got to spend the time that I did, being surrounded by all these amazing people in Mumbai, but fashion people as well, which of course is I think one of the things that is maybe most integrated into the West, is sort of the amazing influences of Indian fashion. So that was a really thrilling, special experience that I hold dear to me. And then in terms of your more general question about my love of fashion, it's an expression of yourself, isn't it? Like, I just think that there's so much genius and beauty in how you choose to clothe yourself, or there can be. And then also as a queer person, right? I was speaking with some of my friends and actually some of the cast members of Coming Out for Love, in how we, especially when we're newer in the community, of how we kind of select what we wear and to kind of try and communicate that we're part of the LGBT community and, all of that stuff. So I think it all just sort of comes together. And ultimately, my passion is freedom, intersectionalism, recognition that we're all multi-layered, multifaceted, and that your clothing and how you dress your home, even, like all of that stuff. I think it can be such an amazing opportunity to communicate a little bit of who you are, a little bit.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me that the different intersections of your career in terms of fashion and television as an actress, Runway, and then this job, you've just mentioned it. You are a host and a reality show, and it's a difficult job. It's a very difficult job to be the host of a reality show. It was launched in May, Coming Out for Love, and of course, the keynote of this storyline of this reality show, I've had some association with RuPaul's Drag Race and reality in the LGBTQ plus community. I want to ask you about it. Of course, it's groundbreaking that you're hosting, because Coming Out for Love is a dating show. It's 16 girls. I read a very funny description on the show that I wanted to mention to you that I thought was really it was funny, and I'm curious in your reaction. Someone described, a reviewer described the show that coming out for love was The Bachelor less the guy. And I thought that that was a funny description, meaning it's all women, there's 16 women, and you as host. First off, is that kind of an accurate description? It's similar to The Bachelor, except there's no guy.
I mean, yes, on its very sort of simplistic structural. I would agree with that.
Help us understand the show. Walk us through, describe what Coming Out for Love does. How does it work? How do they compete? How do you win? Describe. Walk us through this groundbreaking show. All women competing for this competition reality show. Describe how it works.
Well, as you said, on a very simplistic, not dissimilarly to a very, very famous show franchise. So they all live under one roof. They're all in the magnificent Palm Palace outside of Palm Springs, and that includes our lead. So she's kind of making breakfast with the other women and knock on her door late at night. You know, there's a lot of that. So they have the opportunity to genuinely build some intimacy. And how do they compete? Some of them are very fun, silly challenges like, pool volleyball, that. But some things are, what does love mean to you? What's your definition of love? Like, what are you seeking? Things like that, So it wasn't that every single episode was a hard competition. Some of them were, and some of them were just more opportunities for us all to reveal who we were, and I include myself in that just because I felt, especially as it was the first season, I really wanted the women to feel as though they could trust us. And so I feel that, being a little more real, a little more present as a host and divulging a little bit about yourself as well. I personally felt more comfortable approaching it that way because they're women in my community. I'm just a woman in my community. You know what I mean? I didn't want there to be this huge separation. And it was really a wonderful experience. I'm not just saying that because I have to or because I'm part of the show. It was when all the women arrived, and you can see there the pool and things like, it was just there. They were so happy. It was a gift, and I'm grateful to all of the cast and to our lead because, them being willing to kind of go a little deeper expecting from a reality show, because they mentioned that a few times, in their interviews and things. They were like, I was not expecting that, and they went with it and they trusted us, and I'm grateful for that.
Jessica, I'm curious. We have seen this kind of formula, the genre of the formula in many different ways. But this is different in that it is all women. Even from the standpoint of trying to be delicate in saying this, it might, if there was acceptance for it, it might be more broadly understood if it was all men. Being all women, was there any reaction that, wait, this is not only being groundbreaking, but the sheer tongue-in-cheek that women are very sexual, just like men, and a competition dating show is completely appropriate for all women. Did you have any reactions from that since filming it, and your association with the show, of people asking you about it? Does it catch people by surprise? Oh, yeah, this is all women.
I think not necessarily that it's all women, but I said that the women were so forthright in who they are and in who we are, which is, vibrant, intelligent, sexual people who, both do make a difference in the world and have a ton of fun. That's always the misconception, how fundamentally different from men. I very much believe more in the fluidity and the masculine and feminine within each of us. And so no, I didn't really get feedback like that. However, our lead, Amber, surprised at how competitive some of the women were as the show went on, because I think a lot of the women, not a lot of them, but some of them appear very demure, and they're genuinely shy in the beginning, and it was a fantastic leap because all the women were genuinely really attracted to her, so none of that had to be manufactured. But she was surprised.
It was really going. My last question related to the show is, if this show, Coming Out for Love, was all gay men, and you're the host of the show, do you envision that there would be any differences in the show versus what you did with all women? What happened behind the scenes? What happened every day? Would it be different if it were gay men versus what you saw firsthand in women?
That's a great question. No one's asked me that question. I don't think it would be that different. I don't. Well, it would depend, because, for example, a lot of the gay men that I've been friendly with, that I currently am and have been friendly with throughout the years, are, and this will obviously not be a surprise to you, but are a lot more expressive of their vulnerabilities, and a lot more sometimes more traditional in their emotions and what they're looking for in relationships and things like that. Like, I think that, sometimes there can be that stereotype where, all gay men are, sex crazed and looking for this and doing this, and, like snap, all the stereotypes. And of course that is part of the community, just as much as it is in the female community. But I do think there's far more of a range of feelings and identities around love and sex and intimacy and what that means in a real life relationship. And, are you open? Are you polyamorous? Like, do you, monogamous? Like, all of those things. I think that they're very, very relevant in the gay men community just as much as they are in ours. And I think sometimes the sort of common stereotypes of gay men can be can be reductive and don't really give the opportunity for the men to express their interior emotional life, because there's that expectation that you have to be fun and have a great body and kind of always be sparkly, and none of us are all of the time, even if that is a part of our personality. So I like to think that myself, and I think I would have a co-host in that instance as well, but that was a member of the community, of the gay men community. But I like to think that we could get there. I like to think that there would still be that balance of really fun, sexy competitiveness, and that kind of honesty and vulnerability, and also willingness to address toxicities in the community, because Coming Out for Love really does that. Like, we very early on, there's these big discussions, initiates around the N-word, and then extends through to colorism in the community, racism within the community, kind of all of these things that maybe people that aren't members of the LGBT community don't realize. But, we're not a monolith. Like, just because we're LGBTQ doesn't mean we have the same beliefs about politics or money or love and romance or any of those things. So I think it would be great. I think it would be fascinating. I can't wait until we do that.
Great. Exactly. And Jessica, I'm curious, how does it wash over you personally? This is the first lesbian dating show in history in the United States. And forever, Jessica Clarke's name will be associated with it. Forever. That's history. How does that wash over you?
That's just a gift. I mean, I'm grateful, and so, I mean, that's hard to sort of put into words, because you don't yourself that way, I don't think. But certainly for Nicole Kahn, who is the creator director, who conceived of this 15 years ago, because at the time her little daughter Gabrielle, was so obsessed with The Bachelor with her, and was like, "Mommy, why aren't there any women couples?" And so that was the sort of genesis of this whole show. Right. So I think particularly for her, that it's her name that will be in that record, because I think she has been such an amazing advocate and has contributed so much to the representation of particularly queer lesbian women in her films. And I think it's very appropriate that that has created the first queer women dating competition.
Yes, and we've also just learned that the model actress is also beautifully modest, which we also love about Jessica Clarke. Jessica, any word on a second season? Has there been any discussion about that yet?
They actually are in active discussions right now about filming season 2, and it may well be on a very fun location internationally.
Good. So, sounds exciting. All right. Well, for everyone, for more information, you want to go to comingoutforlove.com, and you'll find all of the details, opportunity of catching up on episodes that have already aired. And of course, we invite you to follow Jessica Clarke's social media. There's lots of beautiful things, especially in IG at the Jessica Rose Clarke official in Instagram. And Jessica Clarke, very interesting in getting to talk to you, and congratulations on this historic moment, especially for our girls community in the LGBTQ+. Thank you for joining us today on Unapologetically Queer.
Thank you so much, Al. It was a privilege. I appreciate it.